Okay. So we are set. Yeah, that works. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Happy Father's Day, all. Just kind of by way of announcement, it's good to see everyone's smiling face. Sorry. By way of announcement, the phase 3, hopefully we're moving ahead. They sent off the request the 17th or the 18th. And so we'll probably hear back soon. So phase 3 for our county, might come earlier this week. Ellis, any extra word on that? Do you know anything extra beyond that about when we're going to possibly?
No, nothing.
Okay. So the guidelines for phase 3 are outdoor group recreation sports activities are open. So Margaret might be able to start softball, a season late. And then recreation facilities, less than 50% capacity. Gatherings, no more than 50 people, but spiritual gatherings, 50% of capacity. Just can't get this thing stop smoking. Or steaming up. Anyway, so I'm done. So I'm gonna get close here. So what this means is obviously we can't fit 500 people, so it's half our capacity, which is about 70 people, but really we can't reconfigure the auditorium. I mean, this is about what we can do for that. So we're not really going to be able to reconfigure the auditorium. So we're kind of set as is, but just so everyone knows, it's 3 chairs in the auditorium equals 6 feet distance. So just as you remember, 3 chairs, 6 feet. So like Steve, like 2 chairs over. Over? Yeah. Sorry to say that. Yeah. So just as long as we're 6 feet apart from people not within our household. If someone's in your household, then you can be together. But if out of the household, we remain 6 feet apart. And just be aware of that when choosing your seat. As more people start to come back into in-person services, just remember that 3 chairs equals 6 feet. So just keep that in mind. And as we come back into worship, we just want to maintain that distance. Travel, resume non-essential travel, right? Don't go to Yakima. Restaurants and taverns, less than 75% capacity. Bar areas, restaurants and taverns, less than 25%. Right down here, no nightclubs, so no clubbing, guys. Keep that to a minimum. But library, museums, and theaters are open. And theaters should be less than 50% capacity. I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with movie releases. It's like the new Top Gun was supposed to come out last month. So I wonder if we'll get that here. Anyway, so restrictions remain 6 feet distance. And then just all guidelines they're going to release. And we'll try to keep everyone here updated on those requirements as we move forward. Any other announcements or questions? The only questions I can answer are answered right here. Really.
I can't see from here. Are banks on there? Are they open?
I think so. Yeah. It's all other businesses and activities not listed except for nightclubs and events greater than 50 people. So yeah, my assumption is that would include banks. I can't say for certain though. My assumption is it would.
Most banks because I work for a bank, most banks are opening or making a decision to open the lobbies right now, and it's a state by state and county by county basis. I don't know whether we're open here in Ellensburg or not, though. But if you're a U.S. bank, you can probably find out whether we're open or not. But
yeah, good.
But they will do. Most banks, I believe, will do it by appointment. If you need to go in and see somebody, they'll do it by appointment, and they'll let you through the lobby.
Awesome.
Other than that, it's drive-through or online.
Right.
Were banks not supposed to be open?
No. I mean, some were open. Some were open, some were not.
Yeah.
It depends on the location.
Like how many, they were allowed.
In some states they were closed. In some states they were open. Just
I think it depends on how much money you have in the bank.
Yeah. Oh, that's why they let me in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why an armed guard might be at the door. Yeah, good. So, yeah, any other announcements or anything else? How about happy congratulations to Christine. Congratulations. Graduation's on Friday. We have a high school graduate among us. So awesome job, Christine. Very, very good. Well done. Well deserved. Any other announcements? Any questions? Like, Wednesday night class, still Zoom and YouTube Live for anyone who wants to attend. So thank you guys for attending that. The Colossians class has been going excellent. We're a good way through it, and it's been really fun for me. And thank you all for attending. It's been a good time. Any other comments or questions before we move forward with the song? All right. All right. So, "Holy, Holy, Holy" is a song. Like it's up here. You can feel free to sing along. Keep your mask on. But so we start off with "Holy, Holy, Holy." Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, early in the morning, our song shall rise to thee. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, God in 3 persons, blessed Trinity. Holy, 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 all the saints adore thee, casting down their golden crowns around the crystal sea. Cherubim and seraphim falling down before thee, who was and art and evermore shall be. Holy, 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 though the darkness hide thee, though the eye of sinful men thy glory may not see. Only thou art holy, there is none beside thee, perfect in power, in love and purity. Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, all thy works shall praise thy name in earth and sky and sea. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, God in 3 persons, blessed Trinity. Encamped along the hills of light, ye Christian soldiers rise, and rest the battle ere the night shall veil the clouded skies. Against the foe in veils below, let all our strength be hurled. It is the victory we know.
that overcomes the world. Faith is the victory, faith is the victory, oh glorious victory that overcomes the world. His banner over us is love, our sword, the word of God. We tread the road, the saints above, with shouts of triumph God. By faith they like the world whose breath swept on o'er every field. The faith by which they conquered death is still our shining shield. Faith is the victory, faith is the victory, oh glorious victory that overcomes the world. On every hand the foe we find drawn up in dread array. Let tents of ease be left behind and onward to the fray. Salvation's helmet on each head, with truth all girt around. The earth shall tremble beneath our tread, and echo with our shout. Faith is the victory, faith is the victory, oh glorious victory that overcomes the world. To him who overcomes the foe, like raiment shall be given. Before the angels he shall know his name confessed in heaven. Then onward from the hills of light, our hearts with love aflame, will vanquish all the hosts of light in Jesus' hungry name. Faith is the victory, faith is the victory, oh glorious victory that overcomes the world.
And then before Lord's, or after Lord's Supper, we'll sing Marching Onward to Zion. Before we do, we have Lord's Supper. So Travis will take care of Lord's Supper. Who is assisting? That was me assisting.
All right, remember this is a two-step process, right? Is anybody, Vicky's not here, anybody gluten intolerant? These are,
Yeah.
do we have some of the crackers here?
Yeah, do you need gluten intolerant?
Yeah, the crackers.
Yes.
This is technical. So there's two lids. You got it? Okay. First one comes out the top, and then the second one comes. There you go, man. Yeah, the little program comes out first, so it's required.
Getting that started.
I know, you can have that, since it's already pulled back from.
Okay.
Well, then you can magnifying glasses and tweezers.
Yeah.
Possibly in the sanitary.
Yeah, exactly. I had to think of a barber shop with the utensils in there. Sterilizing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I feel like you should tell like a bad joke. There something.
I walked into the bar. Ouch!
Oh,
It's not really terrible.
that's a review, isn't it? Okay, let's pray. Father God, thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for being with us as we take the Lord's Supper this morning. Father, as we take of the bread, I pray that we'll remember the love, the sacrifice of your Son as he gave his life on the cross. Father, help us to just remember why he did that, how he willingly spent time building up your kingdom and knowing that it was going to lead to his death. Father, please be with us and help us as we look at our own lives, as we try to grow better. Father, please strengthen us and just give us compassion, give us love. And Father, thank you so much for your Son and his willingness to do that for us. Pray this in Jesus' holy name.
Say a prayer for the cup. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for what looks like good weather ahead. Thank you for just an awesome building area to live. I mean, to be and to join together. Certainly, we've been in a really strange year that it's been. And Lord, we just pray that through all of it, we would remember that your grace and your mercy was poured out for us with your blood, and that we would not take that for granted, that we would not lose perspective or hope because it's there, Lord. And you did it. You saved us. We thank you for that. And Lord, as we take this cup, help us remember that. Help us to encourage one another and reach out there to the wolves and the lost to show them that hope as well. Pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
And you can set these cups on the floor, or you can drop them off, throw them in the garbage when you leave, or whatever you want. We'll take care of it if you don't throw them away. We'll say a prayer now for the contribution. We're not going to collect the contribution. As we leave, there's a little box over here, and you could contribute. You could do that on the way out. So let's pray. Father God, you've blessed us and made us rich beyond the imaginations of just many in our country, many throughout the world. Father, everything that we have is yours. You give us everything that we have. You ask us to be good stewards of it, to use it to further your kingdom, to lift you up, to shine your light in this world. Father, I pray that you'll be with us as we figure out what to do with the contribution, that we use it wisely to grow the kingdom here in Ellensburg, in Kittitas County. Father, thank you for blessing everybody that is here this morning with everything that they've got, and we will just watch over and be blessed by our opportunity to share what we have back with you and with each other. Pray this in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
The lyrics will be on the bottom.
Come with us, come the Lord, and let our joy join in the song, the sweet, and us surround the joy, and us surround the throne. Let us sing, children of our heavenly King, for children of our heavenly King. These prayers from His feet, and hearts of God. He loves one release our happy things, glory reach the heaven. Walk the golden streets, walk the streets, the golden streets. And the lights of the stars and marching through the black and snow, marching and the stars we're marching up to Zion, the beautiful city of God, the beautiful city of God, the beautiful city. Yes, we're marching up to Zion, beautiful Zion, marching up to Zion, the beautiful city of God. Yes, we're marching on to Zion, beautiful Zion. We're marching up to Zion, the beautiful city of God.
Over or not, it's over. It is over. Pass that. Again, happy Father's Day, everybody. We're gonna skip about a chapter and a half. So you got my contacts on my glasses. Roxanne was good enough to run home and grab my contacts, so I put glasses in the pocket, so I was talking. So we're gonna move forward a couple chapters in Hebrews to chapter 12. 12, and you'll see why. The text deals with fathers, primarily God as our Father, and human fathers as a representative of God the Father. Is one of the applications that our author makes, and how we imitate God in that regard. So I'm going to go ahead and read the passage, and as I'm reading it, I want everyone to just think about the elements in the passage that strike you and you didn't notice before. Just striking elements. We're not talking about like discussion about certain, but just what strikes you. We're not talking about interpretation or anything. Just what strikes you, what stands out, words, phrases, themes. So, chapter 12, starting in verse 1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding blood, and you have forgotten that word of encouragement that addressed to you as sons. My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines those whom he loves, and he punishes everyone he accepts as a son. Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as sons. For what son is not disciplined by his father? If you are not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are illegitimate children, not true sons. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of our spirits and live? Our fathers disciplined us for a little while as they saw best, but God disciplines us for our good, that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. Make level paths for your feet, so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed. Make every effort to live in peace with all men, and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one misses the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. See that no one is sexually immoral, or is godless like Esau, who for a single meal sold his inheritance rights as the oldest son. Afterwards, as you know, when he wanted to inherit his blessing, he was rejected. He could bring about no change of mind, though he sought the blessing with tears. So, what stood out? Phrases, words, themes, ideas from the text. Maybe something you haven't quite seen before. What jumped out of the text at you?
Discipline.
Kind of a big thing all throughout it. Discipline. It's all about it. Yeah. Good.
I kind of always look at Esau and I wonder how many friends and people we know out there who do that. You know, they got it, everything, and yet they flaunt it.
Yeah, well, you throw away a future reward for a temporary satisfaction.
For example, like drugs, you know. Or
Oh yeah, temporary satisfaction. You're throwing away an entire life. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
I think about my father, you brought that up, and I hadn't considered that before. He did thank us when we needed it. He didn't beat on us or
Sure.
starve us or anything like that. But at the time, it seemed to all of us just awful. And then I look back on it, and I think, thank God he did that.
Sure.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be in church.
Right. Yeah. Good.
Seems like at the end of like every little section, he says, but don't be discouraged.
Yes.
Don't worry.
Yes.
It's like a big
Yeah.
part of it.
Right. That's the whole point. Is discipline seems discouraging, but the whole point of it is don't be discouraged. It's actually providing you with the tools that you need to move forward in a healthy manner. So really quickly, I'm just going to go through the term disciplines used throughout this passage. We especially in terms of God or in parents, we think of it as punishment. It's not exactly what the term Padilla means. The idea is discipline, but really it's guidance for responsible living. It's giving someone the tools to live wisely, to make the right decisions in the future, which can include things like spending, but also a lot of times it includes giving someone the tools and letting them use them. You know, giving someone the ability, giving someone the opportunity to fail, giving someone the opportunity to succeed. You know, giving people what they need to live a wise life, whether that's just through teaching, instruction, through example, or through letting them go. You know, like you think about sports. You know, the coach, once you're on the field, the game's up to the players, right? However hard they play will determine how well they do. And so that's the idea that the coaches give all the training, and then they let you go and do your work on the field or on the court or whatever. But yeah, it's the idea of guidance for responsible living, and it takes so many different forms. So, so we're, like I said, we're in chapter 12 rather than back in chapter 10. But I think the holiday is good. So, for Father's Day, how many have fathers? Just like Mother's Day, everyone's got a dad. Everyone has a father. In our current society, in the U.S., according to the Census Bureau, a quarter of children and young adults, 18 or younger, are growing up without fathers. Growing up without fathers in the home, raised by single mothers, right? In our current society, that's 15.7 million children in our country growing up without a father in the home. Now, I want to make a quick little disclaimer. Vast majority of single mothers are amazing, hardworking, courageous, fiercely devoted to their children. And they deserve admiration for all of the hard work they put in and just everything that they do for their children, right? And I don't want to sit there and make this sound like I'm saying there's something wrong with the thing. I'm not saying that. Many of them they're amazing, amazing people, and deserving of admiration and whatever else we can provide for them. With that said, it's clear that what our society needs is present, hardworking, nurturing, loving fathers. And that's clear from our society. That's what we need. And in many of those situations with the single mother, the actual father of the children probably shouldn't be in the child's life as is, right? They'd be more of a detriment than a help in their current state. Granted, so outside of like coming to Jesus and or some major radical change in their mindset and lives, probably shouldn't be in the picture, right? Because they do more harm than good. But I think it is clear that what we need in our society is good fathers, right? Good fathers teach their sons how to be men. Right? They teach their daughters what to look for in men. Good fathers provide this balance in parenting, right? The mothers provide one aspect of parenting, fathers provide a different aspect of parenting. Both of them are so needed for quality people. And like I said, men and women, we're simply different. Right? We think different, behave different. Any guy that's been around a girl knows we're different. And the same thing with every girl that's been around a guy. We're just different. From the very beginning, we're just different. We bring different qualities to the table and provide a holistic picture of what it means to live in the world. We just do. So, has anyone heard like the term toxic masculinity thrown around in our culture, like on the news and everything else? Anyone really? No? Okay, good. So I'm not alone. Most people are somewhat familiar with this term. It's used when a guy does something horrible. They say that it's an evidence of toxic masculinity. And I think that's a misuse of the term masculinity. And I don't think that that's masculinity at all. It's not toxic, it's just toxic behavior perpetrated by because that's not masculinity. Right? Masculinity is the opposite of what you see in people who say get a girl pregnant and then take off. That's just the toxic behavior. That's not masculinity. It's something that comes from culture, comes from music, video games, TV, all these other values that are thrown at us. It's a perversion of who we're meant to be as men. Right? As men, we're to take on a heavy load, a goal and a purpose to nurture those around us, to be able to fulfill their goals and their aims. Right? That's masculinity. It's taking on the burden of responsibility. That's masculinity. Masculinity isn't getting in a fight, picking fights, getting drunk and hooking up with a girl. That's not masculinity. That's just perverted behavior. That's not masculinity. So when you hear this term toxic masculinity, I think it's mischaracterizing what masculinity is. Masculinity is not just irresponsible, violent behavior. That isn't masculinity. So as men, we come to scripture, we look for, say, examples of fatherhood. Women do the same thing. The issue is for women, for motherhood, there's tons of examples of really good moms. Right? You have like Hannah, excellent mom. Rizpah, if you don't know that story, it's in 2 Samuel. I'm not going to go into it. Beautiful, touching, heartbreaking story. And Mary, good mother, widow of Nain, the widow that Elijah stayed with. So many good examples of motherhood. If you look at scripture, fatherhood, it's dicey. I mean, Abraham, with the whole thing with his concubine and sending Ishmael out to the desert to, die. It took the angel's intervention for him not to die. David, not a good father. The whole thing with Absalom, the whole life is just not good. So it's really hard to find a good example of father. You look at Joseph, scripture calls him a righteous man, but then he leaves his kid in Jerusalem. For several days. But he might be the kind of the good father in scripture. So for guys, we're really kind of at a loss of biblical examples of good fatherhood. I think that's one of the reasons why God as Father is so important for us. Not just how to be a father, but also how to be a son. Right? God the Father and Jesus the Son, in the relationship that they have, helps us to understand the child's relationship to the father and the father's relationship to the child. But then it also, as we'll see, it also shows us how to be good disciples, how to be good children of God, seeing Jesus' relationship to his father. So there's so many different facets to this idea. So before we begin, we go back to this word, discipline. So there's a heading in our text. Guidance for responsible living. This is the one definition that I really want you to get, and that takes so many forms. There's so many ways that we are guided to live in the world and live for Jesus responsibly. So, the first section, that verses 1 through 6, is this host of saints who are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses that have gone before us, and they're all discussed in chapter 11. Right? It goes through all these different heroes of faith and their wonderful examples that they have for us and what it means to live by faith. But what we also see is Jesus, who God calls the founder and the perfecter of our faith. Right? He originates faith, and he shows us how to live it perfectly. He's the founder and the perfecter of our faith. So I want to observe just a couple of points in this appeal of Jesus' powerful example. And to the readers, the initial readers, and to us. So one of the things that the writer says is Jesus' goal wasn't the cross. Right? If you look at the text, go back to it. Verse 2. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning the shame. It's not that the cross was his goal. He endured the cross to get to a larger goal. The joy set before him. There was something beyond just the cross. There's the resurrection. Right? There's the exaltation. And then there's the whole reason for the cross. People coming to Jesus because of what he's done. Right? The joy set before him. The exaltation. Right? The cross in itself is just a tragic event. The cross accomplished something greater than just a death. Right? It accomplished Jesus' exaltation, and it accomplished people from all over the world being saved and coming to God the Father through Jesus the Son. Right? There's more to it. There's a goal beyond just the cross. So for the people to whom the letter was written, I think the purpose for the writer saying this is because they are undergoing persecution. They're undergoing hardship. They're not undergoing it for the sake of hardship. There's something beyond it. There's something better. Right? It's not just the hardship is all that they're going to experience. There's something greater beyond their hardship. Don't give up that hope of what's beyond for the release of some hardship right now. Like Esau. Esau was hungry. He wanted out of his hunger pains. So he sold out his birthright so that he could get some food. He gave up something greater because he was in a temporary state of hardship. Jesus didn't do that. Jesus stayed on the cross. He went to the cross. He endured the hardship for something greater beyond the cross. So these people, as he brings out the passage, they've lost property, right? They've been shamed publicly for the sake of the gospel. However, when hardship upon hardship is upon a person, it does become hard to see past that hardship. Right? When you're surrounded by pain, trouble, it is so hard to see beyond that pain and trouble. You feel like you're in the pain. Is the expression we use all the time. I'm in pain. Right? That's a statement of I'm immersed in pain. I hurt. I'm in pain. In hardship, we just feel that way. We feel like we're surrounded by it and we can't see past it. So I think they're encouraged to look to Jesus. Right? His example of faith, enduring the cross, despising the shame. So they must do the same. Endure their persecution, despise the shame, but there's joy set before them. Just like for Jesus, there's something greater beyond the pain. Right? There's an eternal life set before them. There's eternal joy. There's eternal hope in the presence of God. Right? There's something so far beyond that it's unimaginable and incomparable to the pain they're in right now. So that shame, trial, producing joy later on. So as we look at our lives, just to kind of maybe make this a little bit more relevant, what are the things you're most proud of? The accomplishments you're most proud of in your life. Think about those things that you're most proud of in your lives. Were they the easiest tasks you've ever done? Are the easy tasks the thing you look back and say, I'm so glad I accomplished that? I think rarely, if ever. Some people are celebrating graduation. That's 13 years of work, K through 12. It's 13 years of work. 13 years of going to school, day in, day out, taking tests that you hate. Taking teachers that maybe you don't like, you don't get along with, whatever it might be, doing group projects with people who don't do their part. Everyone's familiar with that. And I apologize, I was that kid in high school. I never showed up, I just wasn't there. So anyone who was in a group with me is out of luck, I'm sorry. Anyway, but it's so much struggle, it's day in, day out. For a goal, something beyond just the day in, day out. It sets you up for a lifetime of accomplishment. So the goal that they worked for all those years, endured all those things, is to set themselves up for a life of success. Right? Because those skills that you learn in school set you up for being able to work with people on the job who don't do their work. They help you to learn how to work with bosses that you don't like. They help you learn how to just show up, clock in, do the work. Right? All of those things at school help you to be successful in life. Those are discipline. That is discipline that you're learning, that's setting you up. So it's not just for the sake of going to school, it's for the sake of a better life. Many of us, I think within 21st century American Christianity, though, when it comes to religiousness, we don't expect the same discipline. We don't expect that we are also required to put in the work, day in, day out. We don't expect the same thing out of our faith. We made a confession, got baptized, showed up to services, put something on the plate, done my part. That's not what he's talking about here. It's not what the context is about. That's not what Christianity is about. Christianity isn't about just this cheap idea of get immersed, go through the motions, and then you get your reward. That's not it. There's not an example, or that's not the example of the divine Son, right? That's not the example of Jesus, right? Who all of his life lived a committed, sold out devotion to his Father, right? Constantly telling people about who God is, what God wants for their lives, how we should live as a result of what God's done, and suffering as a result of that, right? Being ostracized from community, all the things that come along with it. That's the example of Jesus. We want it very, very easy, right? We see Jesus, though, he endured from sinners such hostility against himself. Notice what the author says, so that you will not grow weary or faint-hearted. And because that's expected of us. That's the expectation of us, that we will go through the same things that our master went through. We follow his example. I think we simply don't put in the work a lot of times with regard to our faith that would help us see the reward more clearly for doing so. Right? The harder we work for Jesus, the more clear his reward becomes, the more valuable his reward becomes. We don't put our skin in the game like we should. You know, you just don't appreciate what you don't pay for. You don't appreciate what you don't work for. And I think, you know, in American Christianity, we have the same problem a lot of times. We don't put our skin in the game because we don't see the need for discipline with regard to our faith. We don't teach people about Jesus, so we don't need to attend classes. We don't use sin as corruption in our innermost being, so we don't see the need for confession or repentance. We don't really believe in hell, so we're not committed to evangelism. There's serious issues that American Christianity, and I know myself, guilty of. And I'm not speaking to anyone in particular. I'm just saying the culture of Christianity in our country, and I know for my own self, it is the case. We need discipline. We need hardship. We need struggle if we're going to view the reward or blessing as worthy of our pursuit. God gives us the choice. Within Christianity, we choose our level of involvement. We choose how involved we are. It's not for me to choose, how involved Gavin is. It's not for me to choose how involved anyone else is. You have to choose we all have to choose our own level of involvement. The more involved we are, the harder we struggle. That's just the case. The more involved with our faith we are, the harder we struggle. The more important each decision we make becomes. The harder we struggle, the more important and the clearer the reward becomes. So the more involved you are, the more beautiful and amazing the gift that is waiting for us becomes. Further, I think God wants that type of discipline for our lives. This is what he's saying in the text. For the refining of our faith, right? Holiness, to produce holiness. What he says, pursue holiness. Without it, we won't see God. Right? Pursue being set apart from this world for the purposes of God. That's what he's getting at. So these pressures we face when we square off against sin and unbelief, they're provided by the Lord. That's his discipline. He's providing us with these opportunities to struggle against sin, to choose him over the world. That's providence. It's a gift. When we endure hardship, when we have to make a choice, God or the world, that's a gift. The more we choose God, the easier it becomes, but then the bigger the struggle becomes, and then actually the harder it becomes. But it's an ingrained discipline that just keeps getting bigger and bigger, to whom much is given, much is required. Same idea. They're given to us by a loving Father to us as his children. Right? Those hardships are a gift. I think rather than seeing them as something we need to get out of, see them as a gift. Accept those hardships as a gift. The hardships that come along with our faith are not arbitrary. They're a gift. I think one misconception we have about parenting, we look at this in terms of fathers, right? You're raising human fathers. And I think one of the misconceptions we have about parenting in our time is that we think that our job is to make our children safe. That's kind of a ingrained cultural thing. It's our job to make our children safe. There's a Greek saying said, soft soil makes a soft people. And I think it's a good saying. Right? The easier, the cushier life is, the softer the people become. The more hardships that we're presented with in life, the stronger and more resilient we become. But our job is not to make our children safe. And our job as people who are seeking to make disciples is not to make those disciples safe, necessarily. It's to make them strong. Our job as parents is to make our children strong. Our job as disciple makers is to make our disciples strong. Not safe, but strong. Able to withstand the schemes and the attacks of Satan. I can't protect people from those things. We have to each learn how to protect ourselves, how to be protected, and to seek God's protection from Satan, right? In our struggle against sin, as our writer says, our struggle against sin. The Lord has a different agenda with us, rather than just to keep us safe. And I think we should too, as parents and disciple makers. The goal of parenting is not to make our children safe, but to make them strong. The goal of Christianity is not to be safe, it is to be steadfast, right? To be firm, be strong in the Lord. It's not to be safe, right? You don't see that anywhere in any disciple in the Bible. It's just a nice, safe, easy life. That doesn't happen. You see them constantly struggling against Satan, against temptation, against all those other things. So when I was growing up, there was a term floated around a lot of times, no pun intended, called helicopter parent. Anyone familiar with the helicopter parent? That idea, it's the parent that's just always right over their kid, making sure they're okay. There's a new saying, because it's gotten beyond the helicopter parent. Anyone familiar with the term snowplow parent? The parent who goes in front of their kids to make sure that they don't go through any trouble. They have a clear path, always blocking any kind of hardship or struggle out of their way. That's that's the new model, is the snowplow parent. But when we look at our God the Father, he presents us, rather than with a snowplow, he presents us with discipline. Opportunities to become stronger and more resilient in the world. He presents us with guidance for responsible living, and he gives us opportunity for training. Right? You think about Paul could have quit his mission trips, foregone the suffering, foregone the persecution. Could have said, missionary life, this isn't life for me. I'm just not doing it. Maybe I'm just not good at it because every time I go in the city, I get beat, something. But he chose to see those times of struggle, and in his prayers, he prayed, God, take this thorn out of my flesh. The reply was, God's power is made perfect in weakness. Right? He's able to see God's power through his constant failings, through his constant persecutions and everything else. That's where God's power becomes evident, through the struggle, through the pain, is where God's power became most evident in Paul's life. It was no different for Jesus, as we read here, the author, the perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame. He went through the pain for something greater. I think that responsibility of allowing someone to undergo pain or hurt, struggle, is kind of one of the biggest differences between fathers and mothers. I'll explain in a second. Parenting. Fathers, you're much more likely to allow their children to be put in harm's way than mothers are. We're simply different in how we think. So just a couple of illustrations to show you where I think that's true. We're just different in how we think. Right, so here's how to operate men. One little switch on the top, and then women, there's knobs and dials and gears. And yes, women are just a lot more complicated. They think things through so much differently than men. Men, one objective, get it done. Like with women, there's so many other factors in there. They're so good at seeing all the different aspects of a situation. Most time guys are like, get it done. Compartmentalize. That's a key feature that men have. That women, everything comes into a decision. And I'm not saying either one's wrong or right. Parenting. Mom, and I think we can relate to this one. Mom, she's ginger stroll, just nice, easy strolling. Dad, he's got the kid by the ankle, just walking down the road. Is this relevant to anyone other than me? I think here's another good one. Mom, she's going down the slide. She has her kid next to her. It's all gentle. Dad, he's going down the slide all by himself, having a good time. The kid's like just all alone, freaking out. And I think one of the reasons why these are kind of funny is because they're pretty much true. We're different. We have different styles of parenting. And so, like I said, I think men, fathers, much more likely to put their children, allow them into reasonably dangerous situations so the kid can learn to fend for themselves a little bit. The hopeful outcome is knowing their body, knowing their skill, being allowed to fail, learning from that failure, learning discipline. So, I will always let the girls climb higher than Roxanne will, right? Like she'll always say, I don't know, Derek. I'm like, that's not good. I'm always willing to let them be in more danger than Roxanne will. It's just how it is. Let them go out of sight a little bit further. Let them kind of be alone a little longer, operate with fewer safety precautions, maybe fall. Oftentimes the kids do well. Sometimes they get hurt. But the point is never malicious. I'm never I just hope they get hurt this time. That's not the point. It's not malicious. They need to learn their bodies. They need to learn what they're capable of. They need to learn the lessons of not succeeding or getting hurt and bouncing back. They need to learn how to take a knock, pick themselves up, move forward. They need to learn resilience. That's often the case in the difference between mothers and fathers. Mothers are so good at nurturing, at loving, and instructing. And dads are a little bit better at just, sounds good, take off, come back, kind of thing. They're more readily able to let their kids endure hardship than mothers are. And that is one of the reasons why I like verse 4. Good verse 4. They're struggling. They're in trouble. They're going to go to persecution. And here's the author's response: you struggle against sin. You haven't resisted to the point of shedding blood. It's like, no one's bleeding. They're fine. Sometimes that's my approach to parenting. It's like, there's no blood. They're good. So on this aspect of resiliency, the need to build it, I want to share an article from 2015 from Psychology Today on resiliency in youth and college students particularly. And this is from 2015. The case has only gotten worse and worse every year. So just follow along with me. And this doesn't just have to be college students. I think anyone who's in this age range, it applies to, but they're noticing this particularly in schools and colleges. So a year ago, this is from a professor at a state university. He says, a year ago, I received an invitation from the head of counseling services at a major university to join faculty and administrators for discussion about how to deal with the decline of resilience among students. At the first meeting, we learned that emergency calls to counseling had more than doubled over the last 5 years. Emergency calls to counseling had more than doubled in the last 5 years. Students are increasingly seeking help for and apparently having emotional crises over problems of everyday life. emotional crises over problems of everyday life. So a couple of recent examples include a student who felt traumatized because her roommate called her a swear word. And two students who sought counseling because they'd seen a mouse in their off-campus apartment. The latter two also called the campus police, who kindly arrived and set a mouse trap for them. So think about calling the police over a problem of everyday life, calling the police over a mouse trap. So faculty at the meetings noted that students' emotional fragility has become a serious problem when it comes to grading. Some said they had grown afraid to give low grades for poor performance because of the subsequent emotional crisis they would have to deal with in their office. Many students, they said, now view a C or even a B as a failure, and they interpret such failure as the end of the world. Faculty also noticed an increased tendency for students to blame them, the faculty, for low grades. They weren't explicit enough in telling the students just what the test would cover or just what would distinguish a good paper from a bad paper. They described an increased tendency to see poor grades as a reason to complain rather than as a reason to study more or more effectively. Much of the discussions had to do with the amount of hand-holding faculty should do versus the degree to which their response should be something like, "Buck up, this is college." Does the first response simply play into and perpetuate students' needless and unwillingness to take responsibility? Does a second response create the possibility of serious emotional breakdown, or who knows, maybe even suicide, which is way up in universities? So 2 weeks ago, that head of counseling sent us a follow-up email announcing a new set of meetings. His email included this sobering paragraph. Quote, "I have done a considerable amount of reading and research in recent months on the topic of resilience in college students. Our students are no different from what is being reported across the country on the state of late adolescence and early childhood. There has been an increase in diagnosable mental health problems, but there has been a decrease in the ability of many young people to manage the everyday bumps in the road of life. Whether we want it or not, these students are bringing their struggles to the teachers and others on campus who deal with students on a day-to-day basis. The lack of resilience is interfering with the academic mission of the university and is thwarting emotional and personal development of the students." So he also sent a summary of these themes that emerged in the series of meetings, which include the following bullet points. 1, less resilient and needy students have shaped the landscape for faculty in that they are expected to do more hand-holding, lower their academic standards, and not challenge students too much. There's a sense of helplessness among many faculty. This is 2. Many faculty members expressed their frustration with the current situation. There were few ideas about what we could do as an institution to address that issue. 3, students are afraid to fail. Afraid to fail. And that's the whole point of what we're talking about. That we have opportunities to fail. That teaches us. They're afraid they don't take risks. They need to be certain about things. For many of them, failure is seen as a catastrophic event and unacceptable. External measures of success are more important than learning and autonomous development, self-development, self-improvement. They'd rather have likes on Facebook, is the idea. Faculty, particularly young faculty members, feel pressure to accede to students' wishes lest they get low teaching ratings from their students. Low teacher ratings are creating lower academic standards. Students email about trivial things and expect prompt replies. Next one, failure and struggle need to be normalized. Students are very uncomfortable in not being right. They want to redo papers to undo their earlier mistakes. We have to normalize being wrong and learning from one's errors. And being wrong is just a consequence of being alive. You need to learn how to be wrong and to learn from those errors. Faculty members, individually and as a group, are conflicted about how much hand-holding they should do. Last, growth is achieved by striking the right balance between support and challenge. Right? This is the whole idea: mother, support, father, challenge. We need to reset the balance point. We have become a helicopter institution. That's what it says. And I think that the problem isn't the universities. The problem is within our homes. The problem is how we're raising children and sending them off. And I think the same thing is true within church culture. It's how we're discipling people. Are we challenging? Are we giving them opportunities to fail? Are we giving them opportunities to take responsibility for themselves? Not as a helicopter disciple maker, but as an encouraging disciple maker says, you know what, falls in your court. You choose the level of your involvement. So it's about discipleship. We see the manner in which God disciples his children here and now. He provides discipline. He allows his children, though, to undergo hardship in order to lead them into maturity. He does not remove the obstacles from our path and give us the easy way forward. I think we should remember that within our church and how we train people and teach people. Too often, what we have is kind of the 80-20 rule. Everyone familiar with that? 20% of the people do the work in a group, 80% of the people don't. Right? There's 20-80. There's two ways to kind of address that issue. One way is to say, that's stinking 80%. The other way is to say, well, maybe it's a leadership issue. Maybe I'm doing a bad job of equipping, challenging, recruiting people from the 80%. Maybe I'm not doing a good job of letting people do something and then letting them fail if they need to, and then coming behind them and saying, here's what you could have done better, you could have done different. We recognize, I think we can recognize it's a problem of leadership, right? Any problem in an organization is a problem of leadership. I think we can ask what we're doing wrong. One big problem, I think in most churches, is that a lot of the people within that 20% though, when we take a ministry, it's really hard not to hog that ministry. Right? Not to feel like it's all ours, and if anyone else wants in, no, not going to let you in because you'll do it wrong. Right? Not to give away the ministries that we have come to enjoy, not to recruit and help other people to do those things that we enjoy, that they're ours. So I think giving one another more opportunities to succeed, fail, to work for the Lord is so important. We can't deny people the ability to succeed or fail. God doesn't do that with us. He doesn't do that with us. So, last point I'd like to bring up in this first section, line 6. Undergoing discipline, verse 6 rather, because the Lord disciplines those whom he loves. Undergoing discipline is a manifestation of the love of God. The manifestation of God's love for us when we undergo discipline. The more you struggle in your faith, the more present God becomes in your life. If you choose to kind of live a comfy Christian life, we're missing out on the deep assurance of God's love. Right? The more we exempt ourselves from the struggle of our faith, the less secure we are in the love of God. The less we trust that, we depend on them, the less we do that. The more tough decisions that we're required to make in order to stay true to Jesus and his will for our lives, the more we are required to trust the loving hands of God. The more we learn to trust God, the more his love is manifest in our lives. I think we all have, you can remember times in our lives where we really had to step out in faith and do something challenging. And we're met with assurance, we're met with trust, we have to work hard through it. But we look back on those times and say, man, God was so present. He was right there helping me through, giving me the knowledge, giving me the encouragement, helping me make the wise decisions. As God's children, the deeper we desire to live for Him, the harder the path becomes. But then the harder the path becomes, the more we depend on God's discipline. The more we depend on God's discipline, the more His love is manifest in our lives. This continual process. It's a snowball effect. So I'm just going to read 7 to 12 again and close with 2 encouragements. Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as sons. For what son is not disciplined by his father? If you are not disciplined, and everyone is disciplined, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Think about that. We learn that God is our Father through the discipline in our lives. We learn to trust Him as our Father through His discipline. That's actually a sign that we are His children. Moreover, we've all had human fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of our spirits and live? So again, as fathers, this is one of our responsibilities, is to show our kids how to respect discipline, how to appreciate discipline, so that they can grow forward in their faith as they get older and respect and appreciate and love God for His discipline, rather than right when they move out of the house or whatever, they undergo hardship, just walk away. So that guy's too this tough, someone at church insulted me, I just can't go back. What we're trying to do is build resilience in our kids, build discipline in our kids. Our fathers disciplined us for a little while as they thought best. God disciplines us for our own good, that we may share in His holiness. Just kind of let that phrase sit. He disciplines us for our own good, that we should share in His holiness. Discipline allows us to share God's holiness. It's a powerful thing. No disciple or no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Discipline equals peace. John Lejos told me a story on Thursday about his kid, one of his kids. And I'd like him to share it now, if you don't mind, John. I asked him before worship, so I'm going to just put him on the spot right here. But would you mind? Stand up.
Our youngest guy, I wonder what happened.